It's time for Windows Weekly. Paul Thurrott and Mary Jo Foley are back from Dublin, Ireland, and they've got a lot to talk about, including privacy, the new Surface Book 2, and some great new laptops from HP. It's all coming up next on Windows Weekly.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
This is Windows Weekly, episode 592, recorded Wednesday, October 24th, 2018. It'll be better tomorrow. Windows Weekly is brought to you by WordPress. Reach more customers when you build your business website at WordPress.com. Plans start at just $4 a month, and you'll get 15% off any new plan purchase at WordPress.com/Windows. And by Capterra. Find software solutions for your business needs. Capterra is a free website with over 600 categories of business software. And when you visit Capterra.com/Windows, you'll get your free copy of the big book of free software. It's time for Windows Weekly, the show where we talk about the latest news from Microsoft with the king and queen of Microsoft journalism from allaboutmicrosoft.com, her ZDNet blog. I give you Mary Jo Foley. Hello, Mary. Oh, and Sriracha.
And Sriracha. He's right here. He wants to help out.
What? He's in the... It's kind of like one of those memes with a cat in the corner.
I know.
I don't think he does want to help out Mary Jo. I think
he does not. Yeah.
And in the left corner, it's Mr. Paul Thurrott of Thurrott.com, THURROTT.com. And today we have gathered together. They're back from Ireland.
Mm-hmm.
Did Sriracha punish you for your trip?
No, he was actually okay when I came back.
What is he?
Wow.
What is he making, espresso? Sounds like he's frothing the milk. Welcome
I think that's
to New
a
York
little
City.
alarm outside.
Yeah,
We've had some bomb scares here in New York this morning.
So I heard, yes.
We had a squirrel scare today here in Emmaus.
That's the difference between...
It's a lot like New York City.
The Upper West Side and the Lower Macungie Valley. There's a little...
I think I see two squirrels on the front lawn. What are we going to do about that?
Squirrel!
Squirrel.
Oh. Paul was before the show ranting because you got the S9 or no, the Note 9, right?
I've ordered like $5,000 worth of phones over the past 2 weeks. I literally have no idea what I'm doing.
It's so depressing. You're doing it for
It's
work.
awful.
You're not doing it.
Yeah, sure I am. No, I'm doing it because I obsess over this stuff, and I had a lot of problems with the Pixel 2 XL. And so one of my big goals for this fall with all these new devices coming out was to replace it, ideally with a Pixel 3 XL.
Okay.
So I ordered a Pixel 3. I ordered a Pixel 3 XL.
Wow.
Ordered an iPhone XS, a 10S. I pre-ordered an iPhone 10R.
Holy cow. Are you planning
I've got a Samsung Galaxy S9 Plus coming tomorrow.
Holy moly.
And, wait, there's more.
Wow.
A OnePlus 6T by the end of the month. I don't remember the exact date on that.
Yeah, that comes out the day before the Apple event. It was going to be the Apple event, but oopsie.
Yeah. So
why are you ordering all these phones?
I only want to keep one of them.
So you're going to return the rest. You're going to. This is allowed, right?
I think so. Well, I'll let you know. So, I mean, I've never explicitly done this before in my life, but
might there be a restocking fee for some of these, or anything?
It depends on the company. Apple does not do that. Google has a small restocking fee, but it's worth it to me. $30 per phone if I have to send it back just to have the experience
get the right
with
one.
It. Yeah.
God, I hope that's not more bombs.
I know. It's been a lot of sirens today.
And have they're mostly in New York?
Well, yeah, around Columbus Circle where CNN is, there's been an issue.
I think somebody in the chat room said 7 explosive devices discovered so far today.
Wow.
None of them exploded.
Yeah.
No.
Not
to
humiliate anybody, but that's fortunately somebody's not very good.
Yeah.
At making
great.
bombs.
Or someone's good at detecting these things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Holy moly.
Yeah. So unlike Paul, I didn't go order 7 phones, but I went to the Google pop-up store this weekend that's in Soho.
I don't have
it's
that.
like this.
I don't have a way to see these things in
I
person,
know.
right? So that's actually really nice. So you got to.
It's awesome. Yep.
You tried both side by side, and
Yep. I got to try the 3 and the 3XL side by side. It was funny because I walked in and I just walked over to the phones. I just started playing with both phones. And then I just turned and I'm like, yeah, I want to buy the XL. And the woman's like, what? And I'm like, well, I've obviously
No one's ever
researched
said
this.
that.
Why would you want to buy the XL? She said.
I think they were
she's like,
surprised
"Are you sure?
I was
Have
so
you seen the
decisive.
notch?"
The notch is okay. So here's the notch on the Pixel 3, and here's the notch on the iPhone. Let me open something that's good.
Yeah.
It's the notch on the iPhone is wider but shallower.
Right.
So
So here's the problem I have with it. They on the Google phone, they have to make the status bar double height.
It's higher.
So it's literally just wasted space.
Yeah.
In other words, the point
you
of
know what?
having the notch is you get the full edge display, but you don't because you never get to use that space.
I stopped noticing it in one
Yeah, I don't
second,
really
though. I was
care.
surprised. I thought it would really annoy me.
With a Google phone, you get a notch and a chin. That's the other thing that bothers people
Yeah.
like Paul. But that's for the stereo left and right speakers, Paul.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. But the problem is the leftmost speaker has less power than the rightmost speaker, the
That's
way you're
a little
holding it now,
weird. Yeah.
which is crazy and immediately noticeable. Also, I don't know, Mary Jo, if you're having this problem. My understanding is it's not all of the phones. But when I play audio out of this device and also out of the smaller one, it sounds echoey and tinny.
Huh.
And there's a real like a very noticeable audio problem.
Yeah. So for me, no, I didn't. I actually, after I read that you were having all these various problems, I started trying to recreate what was going on with you, and I can't recreate any of the things that are happening to you.
Yeah, good. No, I'm glad to hear that. I
Sounds
put it in
okay
front
to
of my
me.
wife and I said, yeah, well, so I did it side by side with the 2XL, and I was like, this is crazy how much worse this sounds. And then I went out to my wife's phone, and I said, let's do this side by side. We played the same podcast, and hers was like deep and warm sounding. Mine was just tinny and echoey, and I was like, this is
Wow.
this
That's
is
not
so
good.
crappy. Yeah,
And the
it's not
other
good.
issue is if you launch the camera while you're listening to music, it stops the
There
music.
it goes. That is.
So I didn't
and
have
I
that happen
experienced that.
either. I tried
Well-
that exact thing, and I can't make it happen.
Well,
So here's what I'll say. If it will happen to you unless they fix it,
Okay.
right? So
they'll fix it.
Yeah.
because it doesn't
They'll fix
happen
it. It's
every single
aggressive.
time.
I think it's aggressive memory management is what it is. But
Yeah, it's clearly
yeah.
Clearly. But boy, these things add up, and like to me, it's like warning signs going off because I said, I'm coming off 1 year of nothing but problems. 3 different
Right, I know.
phones, all of them with different problems. Actually, I'm sorry, the third one hasn't had any problems yet. I shouldn't say that. 2 of them had unbelievable problems.
You know, I think you should get. Why did you look at? You decided the S9 Plus instead of the Note 9. I guess you don't need a pen.
I literally spent the better part of a day researching. I rewatched the events that Samsung had, which are kind of hard to watch. I watched a lot of reviews and read reviews.
Yeah.
And what I eventually decided, the pen doesn't mean anything to me. The difference in screen size, honestly, I was ready to go smaller. I mean, in some ways, I think I could be okay with an S9 size phone.
Right.
So yeah, it's just to save a little bit of money. There's no, discernible advantage. The cameras are identical.
I think the Google
I love the
camera
big
may
screen.
edge the Samsung camera, but
The
Yeah.
camera is amazing on this thing.
yeah, and the low.
It's even
there's-
better than
Oh,
the
yeah.
Nexus 6.
There's some low light. A lot better than the Nexus 6P. Mary Jo.
No, and not a lot
welcome
welcome
to the
I wouldn't
21st
say.
century.
No, the
Yeah,
60 was
I
amazing.
actually was surprised.
back
It was
in the day.
close. to
Wait
me.
till you. But it's really in the challenging environments. They're going to add a night vision
Right.
feature that's amazing.
Yeah.
I think that. Yeah, it's interesting. So what are you going to do, Paul? Have you decided yet, or are you still doing your test?
No, I'm still in the midst of this, so it's going to be a few more weeks. I may, who knows? After this is all over, I could reorder a 3XL. I may. Part of me is thinking maybe just keep the 2XL and ride it out for a while. That's what my wife said. She's like, "You're going to spend $1,000 here. I mean, why don't you just keep using the phone you already have?" Which is kind of a common sense, normal human being question to ask of me. But
so wrong.
Yep.
So wrong.
Yeah.
so we'll see.
Interesting challenge, isn't it?
Well, it's tied to things too. It's not a camera. A phone in isolation is one thing, right? Like Mary Jo, I think I really value the quality of the Pixel cameras. There are a few, like the Samsung devices, the new iPhones. Actually, let's leave it at that. Are excellent cameras in some ways on par, even better than the Pixel in certain ways. but I do prefer the Pixel overall. But Project Fi is something I love, and it's amazing, and it's hard. Me switching from Pixel is, even if I stick with Android, is more complicated than me switching phones like a normal person would switch phones, because now I have to move my number too. And
because you're on Fi, right?
Yeah, and it's my primary phone. This is the phone number I've had since 2007. So
that's kind of interesting that you dislike the Pixel 3 so much that you would actually consider moving.
The problem is I had so many issues with the Pixel 2 XL. I can't do this again. I'm not doing. I kind of fought with Google on the last one. Imagine this, because the Pixel 2 XL had so many problems, they doubled the warranty from 1 year to 2. And so I did a warranty exchange in April this past year, and they give you a refurbished unit, whatever. And so come August, and now I can't get a charger cable to stick in the thing and charge it or whatever. I can't use the dongle with headphones because as I walk, it just falls out of the port. It's not lint, by the way. Please don't anyone write in and tell me it was something in the port. It wasn't. But I called Google, and actually I chatted with Google, and I said, look, I need to exchange this thing again. And they said, well, it looks like you got this phone in April, and we only have a 3-month return policy on refurbished phones. And I said, no, this thing has a 2-year policy. I spent $1,000 on this phone last year. You warrant it for 2 years. You're not you can't decide to give me a refurbished one and then cut the warranty by 75% or whatever.
Yeah. Right.
And that's so anyway, went back and forth. They got someone else involved, and finally they were like, good news, we've decided to let you exchange it. Like, good news. Wait, this are you kidding me? So I'm nervous now. I mean, what if something happens to this one? Right now they're going to be like, guy, you've returned 3 of these.
Do you think
like,
Samsung's better?
It's you.
I think Apple's the only one that really is decent in this.
Yeah, well, right. And that's absolutely one of the candidates for sure. I mean, one thing I could do is go back to what I was doing a few years ago, which is use an iPhone as my primary phone, and then use Project Fi only when I travel internationally, which it's like what Mary Jo does and what Brad does. And then have that phone on trips when I can, when I want to take pictures and stuff, when it will be nice. I would do that, and one of the things, it's not really in the notes, but I have to say, one of the things that I think is true today is that, and this is so much more true than it was, say, in the PC versus Mac days or whatever, these platforms, if you accept the fact that what you're really doing is running those apps, that's the point of it, right, are identical, right? And so you can choose the phone that's best for you. A lot of people prefer the reliability and the security maybe of iOS. Some people love the choice of Android, and I get both arguments make sense. Just pick the one that you like, because you're going to run the same apps. Like, I'm not going to go to an iPhone and start running iCloud and Apple's stupid whatever. I'm going to still use the Google and Microsoft apps and services that I use, no matter what phone I use. And actually, that's one of the nice things about today, because it literally is identical. And honestly, by and large, I would say the apps on iOS, the same apps tend to be better than they are on Android.
Yeah, so the question really is, why not just get an iPhone?
Because I use Project Fi. Because
you'd have to change carriers.
Really do prefer the camera on the Pixel phone.
Yeah.
Even though the iPhone 10 Plus, all those phones have excellent cameras too.
Boy, that is, That is,
I know. And so anyway, I'm just navel gazing. This is like,
but there's nothing perfect. I mean, that's really the truth of it. There isn't a perfect phone. There's a sacrifice in every phone.
Yeah, I feel like that's true of PCs and phones, right? I mean, there's no perfect thing.
Except Sriracha.
Except for the Xbox.
Except Sriracha.
And the Xbox.
There are occasional devices that get there. And there are people who love Samsung devices, and they can point to whatever new Samsung phone. There are obviously people who have Apple devices that can point to the 10S or whatever. And Pixel fans, I'm absolutely, if it weren't, I mean, listen, I would be firmly in this camp if it weren't for the reliability issues I've had. I have no qualms about any of that. I mean, any of those people all have a great point. Those are all great choices.
Yeah. I was worried because of what you had told me about the Pixel 2. It made me worried when I was like, should I even try the 3? Because I remember you saying all the issues you had, but so far so good. Crossing fingers for me.
The reason I felt like this time would be different is that the Pixel 3 XL is fundamentally an HTC device.
Right.
When you go back to Pixel 2, the smaller Pixel 2 was an HTC device. You'll notice that one didn't have any of those problems.
Mm-hmm.
The Pixel 2 XL was an LG device. That thing had all kinds of problems. And then you find out some of the details. It has a Samsung screen this year, much higher quality than the LG crap that they shipped last year. You kind of think, well, okay, they didn't, the HTC Foundation from last year, they literally brought that team into Google. Both of the phones now are fundamentally as identical as they can be versus size. This time will be different. And I don't know. Maybe I've just, I literally, that audio issue, by the way, happens on both of the phones, the small one and the big one.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So listen, I want to love it. I want to use it. I wanted this to be the answer. Yeah. And maybe it will, maybe if I wait, I'll go through a few phones, check things out. And maybe if I go back to Pixel 3 XL, there's the new batch or, I get the right, but I don't know. I don't know what happened.
Right.
I don't know.
I know. I wondered if, this sounds crazy, but sometimes the early batch has problems, right? And you got yours right out of the gate.
Oh, immediately.
Right?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who knows?
And Mary Jo, you got the Pixel 3, right?
I get the 3 XL. Yep.
So the good news is we can watch Mary Jo suffer. And we'll know, or she'll be cheering. By the way, I'm sorry about all the noise, but somehow it seems that I have to go through a tour of this without, I can't stop it.
There's no way to shut it off.
No, I just have to watch TV. I have to say, it's not a bad screen. And this, I wonder maybe is this a button? Oh, I can adjust volume. There you go.
There you go.
There you go. That's great. I'm doing that album thing, which you mentioned, which I really like.
Oh, it's awesome.
Yeah.
And everyone in my family has kind of walked into the kitchen and just become transfixed from it. Because there's a photo we forgot existed.
Yeah.
One of the kids when they were 3 or 2 or whatever it is. And
people I don't know.
It's neat. Yeah. Yeah. Well, not quite as special.
It's going to be people I know. Oh, it's still showing the video. Oh, it's explaining this thing. Wait a minute. What is that thing? Oh.
Brightness.
When it's time for bed, Hub knows to dim for a good night's sleep.
I think that's the light sensor.
Yeah, so the one advantage of that device
seems to be a way to rewind this.
Auto detect.
I missed the good part. Yeah, I'm ready to give it a try. Yeah. Oh, finally, thank God. It's quiet.
Ooh.
Don't you hate that? Forced march. So good. So you didn't see any of those problems, and you haven't had any of those problems, Mary Jo, with your Pixel 3 XL. So maybe
no,
when
and
did
the
you
one
get your
thing,
phone?
I got my phone on Saturday, so I haven't had it that many days yet. The one thing that I've noticed I'm doing differently than I did with the Nexus 6P is I'm trying to use the Microsoft Launcher more and just consciously try to use it instead of just it being there installed and me not really using it. And I feel like on the bigger screen, there's I can see more things to do, and so I'm using them more. I didn't realize there was a little note-taking thing in. I don't know what note-taking product it is from Microsoft, but it's embedded in the launcher. I don't know if it's...
That might actually be on the new side.
Yeah, I don't think it's to do. I don't think it's sticky notes. I'm like, oh, is this another kind of note-taking thing?
I'm working off of memory here, so this is going to be inaccurate, but I believe that's fairly new in that it will eventually, I think it's going to sync to OneNote.
Yeah. That makes sense. Yeah. So I like that because that's, sometimes you just want to do a quick note and I don't want to open OneNote and I'm just it's like using Notepad for me, kind of. Yeah. So that's handy. Been trying to use Cortana more consciously.
It's not embracing the whole Android thing here.
Yeah. No, but I'm using the phone like a lot of people who are leaving Windows Phone might try to do, which is use all the Microsoft apps, right? I don't really care about Gmail and those experiences because I don't really use those things. So
cool.
Okay.
You're going to make your Pixel 3 XL a Microsoft phone, but you can't really do that with the iPhone, can you, Paul?
No,
So
and
that's kind of an argument for an Android device.
Well, okay, but all of the apps and services that you want to use from Microsoft are also available in the iPhone. And even though you don't have the launcher,
That's
you
what
can
you're
still
giving
do.
up. That's all, right?
You can still do the round tripping. I mean, when you think about it, what's the point of picking up where you left off? Right? Is Mary Jo frozen, or is she just staring in abject wonder like that?
You know, I didn't notice because it's such a great shot of Mary Jo. But yes, so keep talking, Paul, and we'll get Mary Jo back. I guess Sriracha did something.
Yeah, if you are working in a Word document or Excel spreadsheet or whatever it might be on your computer, and now you're commuting to work or you're doing whatever, and you have your phone and you want to do some light editing, that all works in the apps, right? It's automatic, assuming you're saving to OneDrive, of course, right. Which you are because you're a Microsoft guy. So you still get that capability, right? You don't get a timeline type screen like you might in the Microsoft launcher, but I would argue that that's not necessarily required. And you could use the Microsoft SwiftKey keyboard with the iPhone. You could save your photos automatically to OneDrive. In fact, I recommend doing those things. You could run the Cortana app if you wanted to for some reason. I guess then you could have the two least useful assistants on one phone. I guess, I mean, like that stuff's all there. But I think, I take a slightly different approach to this stuff than Mary Jo, in the sense that I like using the stock thing usually. And I think especially on a pure Google phone like the Pixel, I really like the gesture-based navigation that they have in their Pixel launcher. Mm-hmm. I find it to be very efficient.
I do like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I would never replace that.
I'm kind of fond of the Pixel, to be honest.
But the other thing, it kind of ties back to what I said earlier about apps and services, how they're everywhere. Worrying too much about the thing you're running apps from is kind of missing the point. I think for most people, Mary Jo is saying, Twitter's calling me back on some unknown number. I can't answer. Could you ask them to do line 2 again?
Okay, you hear that, engineers? Engineers.
Anyway, when it comes to phones, we're all like this user experience expert all of a sudden. We're like, I don't like the whack-a-mole thing on the iPhone or whatever. The truth is, for most people, it's just a little bit of muscle memory. I know where that thing is they want to tap to get to the app I want. And what I really want is the app. And the app is the point. And whether the app is Gmail or Outlook or Google Photos or whatever it is, that's the user experience. It's those apps.
Right.
And it's really the only thing that matters. And honestly, when you strip it down to that, like I said, Android and iOS are basically identical. And that allows you to pick other things as the important reason to choose a platform or a phone. You might like the design. You might like the camera, whatever it might be. And it kind of eliminates like stupid stuff from the discussion or from the decision-making process. I think contorting ourselves to work within the confines of like one company's vision of what something should be is not necessarily the way to go. Like I said, like if I use an iPhone, I'm going to be using Google Apps and Services. I'm not going to switch over to iCloud for backup or, Apple's productivity apps. I would never use that stuff, partially because it's a real lock-in issue.
Right. There we go. Mary Jo's back. Sorry about that.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I'm using Microsoft apps on a phone that happens to be a Google phone, and I'm not going to suddenly start using Gmail. It's like I don't use that platform. No one I use it with.
Well, okay, but the difference between like I don't know, like whatever the Apple Mail thing is and Gmail is that Gmail works everywhere. And right. It does. Right. At that point it becomes an interesting conversation because you could compare. I'm not saying you should, but you could compare because honestly they're just about the same. But Gmail to Outlook or whatever. I mean, they're they work everywhere, so you could use either one. Yep. I mean. That's one of the nice things, iOS to Android. The apps, those things all do work everywhere. But if you go into the Apple corner, it's kind of like a one-way dead-end street. Like you get in there and then you're done. Like to get out of it is really complicated. If all your photos are stored up in iCloud, where you can only get them to them from an Apple device, you pretty much confined yourself to being on an Apple device, unless you do a lot of work.
Or if you're in with iMessage, right? If you're an iMessage user, yeah. People were coming into the Google pop-up store, and the first two questions they asked you if you're looking at the phone, one is, are you on Verizon? The second one was, do you use iMessage? And so a lot of people were like, yeah, I use iMessage. And they're like, so here's how you can get off the phone and get onto, and you just saw people walk out.
Yeah.
It's like,
they should just break out a fire hose and spray them right out of the store. You do use iMessage? Yeah, no, you're not. Get out of here.
Get out of here. Get out of here.
Right.
So I don't care about any of that stuff.
Yeah.
My kids are always talking about green text and blue text and
green bubbles, blue bubbles.
whatever. I don't care.
No, because you don't have a peer group.
Well, it's not just a peer group. You know, one of the advantages of iMessage is that it works over non-cellular networks. You know, but the Pixel also supports this, right? You can actually send and make phone calls over Wi-Fi. You don't have to have, I mean, you usually do have a cell phone connection, obviously, but I feel like it's a weird little lock-in thing. Like I have to have iMessage. You know, it's like
it is a weird lock-in. Yeah,
I don't get it. I don't get it.
I don't like that part of it. You know, increasingly what's going to happen, unfortunately, and Microsoft's kind of the third party on this, is this lock-in, this siloed lock-in between Apple and Google and Samsung. And you'll choose, because, we just set up the Google Home Hub. Well, of course it works with an iPhone, but it works better with Google, and it uses Google Photos, not Apple Photos. And it uses Google Duo for calling. But Apple's Home Hub, well, that only works with iTunes Music and on and on and on. And I think increasingly that's what you're going to see.
Yeah.
Samsung has spent the past several years doing nothing more than trying to eliminate Google as much as possible from its phones.
But even Google's doing that. Google didn't say the word Android once at its last event.
Yeah, I have some theories about that.
That's weird, right?
Yeah.
I think it's like what Microsoft is doing with Windows, right?
That's right.
It's so strange.
It's still there.
Does
but
Microsoft
they just
not say the word Windows?
Yeah, they barely ever say it anymore.
Oh, that's really interesting.
Yeah, it's Microsoft 365 now. So in Microsoft's case, they've kind of undermined some of their own brands like Windows and Surface because they feel probably correctly that the Microsoft brand is a better brand. My opinion of the Google Android thing is that Google understands that Android may not have the best reputation, that it's known to be insecure. It's known to have privacy issues, and that maybe if they stop calling everything Android something, it's Google for whatever reason not for whatever reason, for understandable reasons, Google is trusted. You trust Google when you get in a car with maps that it's going to get you there the most efficient way possible. I think Google is trusted on that level. We also sort of understand that they're selling our data while they're driving us to Burger King or whatever. But, well, no, I mean, right? I mean, this is the
maybe I'll get a coupon.
Listen, I'm taking a shortcut, and my date of birth. No, I mean, it's just what are you going to do?
Well, I think in Microsoft's case too, it's because they don't want you to think of them as a Windows company anymore. They want you to think of them as a cloud company, right? They want you to think of them as somebody who's in a different space than they used to be, the old Microsoft. So I think it's partially wrapped up in that for them, as much as using the Microsoft brand too.
But you saw what Tim Cook did at the privacy conference yesterday, where he just reamed every company for being, predatory.
I hope this is on the recorded version of the podcast. But remember last week we were in Dublin, and someone in the audience asked, which of the big U.S. tech companies do you think is going to be the first to run afoul of the GDPR?
Right.
And both of us said Google, obviously, because they have no sense of people's privacy. They talk about privacy all the time, just like a thief who talks about the things he's stolen can't shut up about it. There's something really weird. But I think we all agree, right? Almost anyone would agree. And then we were about to move on, and the flash thought occurred to me if you turn that around, which of those companies is going to be the least likely to run afoul? And it's Apple. And I really think this might end up being Tim Cook's greatest contribution to Apple. Like, he's never going to come up with an iPhone, right? He's not Steve Jobs. He's not a visionary when it comes to product design or anything like that. But he has latched onto this privacy thing like a pit bull.
Yeah.
He has gone after companies that compete with him, like Google. He's gone after companies that don't compete with him, like Facebook, because they trample all over people's privacy. He has literally made iPhones less functional because they refuse to trample over your privacy. It's a fascinating thing, and I think in this age especially, it's something that resonates with people. And if you kind of accept what I said earlier about apps and services being the same from platform to platform, this is yet another reason to go to the iOS side of the fence. Does anyone really think your privacy is safe on an Android phone?
No, but I think people don't care anymore.
I think people increasingly do care.
You know,
I think
people want to believe. I feel like people want to think they care, but I think people have traded convenience for privacy, and they're kind of, they don't want to say it.
Let me ask you this, Paul. Do you trust Samsung more than you trust Google? Actually, with a Samsung phone, you'd get the worst of both worlds. Both companies are spying on you.
Yeah. I mean, Samsung, it desperately wants to be Apple, ultimately. And the way they get there is to get rid of Google. And the way they have to get there now is to use Google. There's nothing else they can do. But, I don't think Samsung has the class or the design skills or whatever you want to call it to really compete with Apple on an aesthetic level. Although, actually, some of it, its phones are beautiful, et cetera. But, no, do I trust this? No, I don't trust any of these companies. But, I don't know. It's hard when you look at all the, Apple or Microsoft rather has kind of recast itself as like the company you can trust. And I think there's some interesting arguments to be made for this. But let's not forget that Microsoft was also literally the least trustworthy, company in tech not that long ago. And you can turn things around, I guess. Apple, I think they're doing a smart thing. And I think we've all had that experience where you open up, an email and there's, it's about whatever it is. So I'm trying to think of something like a Casper mattress thing. And then all of a sudden you're on the New York Times site and there's Casper mattress ads everywhere.
Yeah.
And you don't have to be that smart to draw this connection. You don't have to understand how the web works to know that there are these little things tracking you around and something insidious is going on, And so Apple in particular, browser makers like Mozilla are doing this as well, are starting to kind of crack down on this. And the one company that's never going to crack down on this, let's be honest, is Google. There's no way. Google doesn't end advertising on Chrome. They try to create an advertising initiative where we can have acceptable advertising on Chrome. That's their solution because they're all about ads.
Right.
So
I feel like people who listen to this podcast and other podcasts on Twit will care more about privacy, but the average user, I think, no.
That's for sure, although users are becoming more and more aware of it. And if Tim Cook has anything to do with it, he's going to make sure everybody knows.
They talk about this stuff. You can't watch an Apple event without them. Remember they used to they used to start off when Steve Jobs was around. They started off like, here's how the last 3 months have gone. We're making billions of dollars. We sold now they talk privacy is the most important thing in the world. And we know that like iPhone users are not like Mac users used to be back in the day. They're not technical people anymore. Some of them are, obviously. But I mean, by and large, we're talking about normal human beings here. And he's hammering this. And there's a lot of stuff about Apple I don't like. I think they have kind of a fake humility to them. I think there's a real hubris issue over there. There's also a parentalism, as I would call it. Where they always seem to know better than everyone else.
Well, the people I worry the most about are the most sanctimonious, right?
Yeah.
Right.
And then you feel like maybe they're hiding it. At least Google makes no bones about it and gives you plenty of information about what they know about you and even ways to delete it. But they make it's clear, and Facebook too. It's clear this is their business model.
I don't know as much. Google just had a big privacy announcement today, for example.
Yeah, they're going to use, and I don't search is going to. They're going to be able to
easier to see.
You can search. You can search for your privacy violations on Google search. That'll be great. Fantastic. I don't know. When it comes to this stuff, I know more about what Microsoft has done with privacy, and I look at the controls they put into Windows 10, and I've referred to it as privacy theater, and I have no reason to believe that what Google's doing is anything less, similar. Or the same. I don't know. That you can go in and delete your whatever is great, but the fact remains when I open an email, then I go over here, the ad's over there, and they're not going to work to get rid of that. And the notion, like,
is what
we're so
bothers you the
accepting.
fact that they're not selling Paul Thurrott's user information. Facebook is, by the way, but they're not selling Paul Thurrott's user information. They're selling aggregate user information for advertising. If that's all they were doing, would you be upset, or is it that you're worried they're doing more, or is that enough to make you upset?
Google has admitted that they've allowed individuals from third-party partners to view Gmail emails. What I worry about,
people sign up for these services, and that's you sign up for things like Unroll Me. That's when they can do that. By the way, Google has stepped back on that, and they said we're not going to allow that anymore, except if it's directly has to do with email handling. So they understand that that's a problem.
If nobody complained, if there was no, in other words,
but you're signing up for email services. They have to read your email. I don't see that as a problem. Don't sign up for those.
I'm speaking more in a role of an advocate here than I am as an individual. The thing, I wrote an article about this this Tim Cook thing today, and what I wrote at the end, which is just kind of, it's just honest, is I've always felt over the years, for myself personally, as someone who kind of lives my life semi-publicly, right? I'm fairly transparent about whatever's going on in my life. That if you're not doing anything wrong, you don't have anything to hide. But I think increasingly, because of the way the technology has evolved, we're giving these companies that have no oversight an incredible ability to pry into our lives and do bad things on our, to us or on our behalf or whatever. And I do see a danger to it. I'm not a Chicken Little type. I mean, I'm fully invested in the whole personal technology thing. For all of the problems of Google, I use a lot of their products and services. I would never drive from here to Boston on a highway and not use Google Maps. So I don't mean to sound hypocritical, but I'm just raising an alarm about this company because I think unchecked.
No, I'm with you.
They could be a very dangerous.
I'm just wondering what use of the data you're worried about.
Yeah, like when's it okay? So I would say to date, the stuff that we know Google is doing, to me, has been an acceptable trade-off. Like, I can look at, like I said, those ads, and my wife and I have had these conversations. Like, it's creepy. Like,
yeah, but who looks? I don't even see ads, to be honest with you.
Okay,
same.
But I'm just, okay, that's fine. I mean, I'm just saying.
And wouldn't you prefer ads that are at least something you're interested in than ads for things? When I get ads, I was getting ads on Facebook for barbed wire to keep my cattle in. And I guess it's because I was in Petaluma, but it's like, well, that's not.
Before this stuff got sophisticated, I used to get ads. I used to get ads for house windows because obviously a lot of what I communicated was Windows.
Me too.
And so, the argument that now I get actual ads for like antivirus programs for Windows.
So which is more annoying, right? I mean, do you mind? Wouldn't you?
I don't know. Listen, I'm going to be hypocritical about this because, for example, the way that I use Instagram is I don't follow that many people, although I do follow some. I follow some number of companies, and it's often I follow Google, I follow Microsoft Surface, I follow OnePlus. They often post things on Instagram that I think are half interesting, and then there's that advertising element to Instagram, and it has been fine-tuned to the point where I see things that I actually kind of care about. Like I see ads for like travel bags or wallets or, whatever. Like, and I in the case of Instagram, I have to say right now I'm at that point where it's fine for me. Like, it's fine. What I worry about is Instagram's parent company and the voracious nature of Facebook.
Yeah, that's why I killed my Instagram account and my Facebook account and my Twitter account. That's how I participate in that. The problem is it's very hard to kill your Google, your Google account. You could use DuckDuckGo.
I'm not going to. Look, my entire history of digitized photos is up in Google. Right? God knows what they're doing with my family right now. I have no idea.
Well, I know what they're doing with mine because my Google Home Hub is giving me a lovely slideshow of my family. I just think it's the best thing ever.
Well, by the way, that's one of the very fascinating things about this. So when you go, like you just did this, but I'll just explain this to people. You go into the Google Home app, you create this new album. One of the ways you can do it is say, I want pictures of these people.
That's what I did.
Now, these people in my case are me, my wife, and my children.
Yes.
What's astonishing about this, like, stop right there, go back to that last picture if you don't mind. I don't know who these people are, but let's pretend maybe it is your children at a younger age.
That is
one of the things.
And this is Henry in the way. How the hell they knew that was Henry way back there?
Yeah. This use of artificial intelligence or whatever you want to call this to me is astonishing because my children today look nothing like they looked like when they were children. And we're watching this thing and these pictures are popping up and it's spanning
I'm loving this.
For my kids, it's spanning an 18 to 20 year range, whatever.
Exactly.
It's amazing.
I love it. This is the best picture frame I ever had. I've only had it for 5 minutes, but I'm already in love with it. I put it right there because it's showing me pictures I haven't seen in ages, and because I store photos in Google Photos forever, and because their face recognition is so good, and so there's a benefit to me. And my question is, what is too high a price? What price are you willing to pay for that benefit?
What would Google have to do for me to be like, I'm walking away from Google? I have to be honest. I have a hard time imagining that.
Well, it's hard. It's also hard to walk away. By the way, I don't use Gmail anymore. I have a Gmail account because you have to, but I don't. My mail does not go into Gmail.
Yeah, interesting.
So,
well, that's something. By the way, that's something I'm also exploring right now.
You can somewhat. I think you can draw a little bit of a line, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
but I still have to use Google Search and Google Maps, and I'm still carrying a Pixel phone, so presumably they're getting huge amounts of data about me. So, but if all they're doing with it, to me, if all they were doing with it is customizing ads, which, by the way, is 90% of the revenue that they make is that, I don't have a problem with that.
Yeah. Okay. No, and by the way, I don't either really because I am literally, like I said, using all kinds of Google apps and services and products. We have Google Home devices. We have a smart display. Like I said, we use Google Maps every time we drive. I do use Gmail, although we're going back and forth on that right now. Use Google Photos.
It's easy not to use Gmail, by the way. I mean, that's trivial unless you use a Gmail address. See, I've always used a domain for my address, and I just forward it to somebody else, and that's all there is to it.
Yep. I'm probably going to.
And the main reason I changed, by the way, I should be fair to Google from Gmail, is not because I didn't privacy, but just it wasn't as functional as a real IMAP server, so I use Fastmail instead. But and I find it works better for me. I used Gmail for the longest time only because it had the best spam filtering, but now that spam filtering has really gotten good everywhere. I don't know if I talked about this on the podcast, but back in August maybe, they announced they were going to get rid of Inbox, which is the version of Gmail I've been using, which I love. Yeah.
I love it.
You love the auto replies probably, right?
I love this simple UI. It's exactly what it's like the markdown pad of email programs. It's like it's just the basics. I love it.
Yep.
So I went and I looked at Gmail, which had a major update this year. And I thought, what is this thing? It's like Microsoft Outlook. It's this gross, overcrowded, terrible interface full of crap. So I thought I have to find something new. But regardless of how that turns out, because I'm still in the process of kind of examining that, the thing I found out, because I decoupled all my email from each other. I used to forward everything to that Gmail account. I have not been receiving emails for years. And I didn't understand this until I stopped forwarding things around. And I think it might have to do something with the multiple spam filter effect. And there's a weird thing on Gmail. Gmail may have used to have the best spam filter, maybe, I don't know. But say you get an email from, I don't know, like my newsletter, something you get every single day. So it comes in on day one, and then day two, it puts it in the spam filter. And when you look at the reason why, it says, you seem to get a lot of emails like this. That's not a reason for something to go into spam.
Yeah, Google has a little problem with that on the Pixel.
And you can't fix it.
On the Pixel, if you swipe away notifications as you read them, after a while I'll say, well, you don't want to see these anymore?
Right, I know.
Yeah.
I don't like that.
I just want to clear them. I don't.
Even the Android notification system, great. But even if you think about how Android notifications work, you set up a new phone like Mary Jo just did. And I'll have to make up some app. You get like a Duolingo app, and it starts putting up notifications. You're like, I don't want notifications from this app. I'm going to use it or not use it.
Right.
So you do a half swipe. You hit the little gear thing. You say, I don't want the notification. It will actually ask you, or I'm sorry, I'm using the wrong example. If you just swipe off a notification, you archive it or whatever.
Yeah, we were just saying
it will say,
do you not want to see this?
Yeah, they don't do that in Gmail.
Right.
It will do that in notifications.
Right.
And that's something that should be, you don't decide for me,
Paul, as anyone who's ever had a valet knows, it's hard to be helpful. And it takes, you know this, Paul, it takes a little while. They have to learn your habits. They have to understand you a little bit better. It takes some training. But this is
what I'm
hard
saying
for
is it's
things,
not working.
Yeah.
For all of its
well, you should
AI
fire the
prowess.
valet and get a new one.
I am examining that right now.
Yep.
But I actually, that was facetious. But in all seriousness, I think it is hard to be helpful, and Google.
Yeah.
So Google will turn something on like that, and then I think they get feedback and they respond.
Leo,
They fix it.
Microsoft suffered from this problem 20 years ago, and the problem was Clippy coming up and saying, "It looks like
Yes.
you're trying to run a ransom note. You want
Yes.
some help."
Clippy was trying to be helpful. Yes.
Yeah, my conclusion from that episode was that by trying to act proactively on behalf of the user, you're making mistakes because not everyone is the same.
Yeah. It's hard.
And it's hard. Well, here we are 20 years later, and Google's making the same mistake. So it's one thing that it's hard, but the fact that they're actually making literally the same mistake, having not learned from the mistakes that Microsoft made previously, is kind of.
I disagree.
I feel like all the digital assistants do this, though, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
the key is
talking
that
about
they
Gmail.
learn. The key is that they learn.
yeah, but I mean, AI is what powers all these
Right.
things, right? AI is what's powering the email to do this, and so it's also what's powering, Google Home and Cortana Siri, right? So
You're not
I
gonna,
feel like it does
you're
take a
never
lot of
gonna-
training. Yeah.
So you don't use Gmail. So the one thing you've never been able to see on the Pixel 3 XL is auto-generated emails. It will start to fill out sentences for you as you type in a response to an email, and it is astonishing. I'm not saying it's always
starting
accurate.
to do that elsewhere too. By the way, that's
Okay.
yeah.
It's
That's
actually kind
AI
of
at work. It's really amazing. Isn't
yeah,
it?
and it's not simple. You can play that game on an
Right.
iPhone keyboard where you go to the next suggested word and you construct nonsense sentences. We've all kind of played with that a little bit. It's not like that. This is like it is examining the email. You start typing. It's making a determination where you're going with this thing, and it's not simple autofill like it looks like you're typing an address. Here's the rest of your address. It's like it's making English sentences for you. In my case,
Smart reply they call it. Yeah,
smart reply. Yeah, it's actually rather astonishing.
and they're adding it to messages and other places that you will be typing stuff. So
There are simple things. Mary Jo will use the Messages app. If I send you a text message, you'll see maybe two or three little simple replies like "Okay, thank you, sounds good, I'll check it out," whatever.
Yep.
So that's a really basic version of this.
are you saying they're
And now
writing the
they're-
whole email for you?
Yeah, they're doing a War and Peace for you now. It's
But
like
do you ever
Ishmael,
find
and
it
we'll just put the whole
useful
book in
out
there.
of curiosity? Like, is it good enough to be used?
I'm probably not going to stick around long enough to find out.
With amendments, I find it is. You usually have to touch it up.
I like. I still find it very difficult. I'm gonna say it at almost age 52 now. I'm never gonna master typing on a phone keyboard. This is apparently something I'm generation. I don't know what it is, but the ability for it to do most of it. Even like I do a lot of text messages with my voice. I almost always have to go back and correct something, and some of the things I have to correct are a little infuriating because it's from a context standpoint, it doesn't make sense to me why it would make the changes it made. But to be able to type out a huge block of text with my voice and then make one or two corrections, it's still a huge time saving because I'd still be typing that message now. I can't do that.
You know what the kids do now? It's kind of it's in an ironic. I think this is what you're going to see among younger people who grow up with this stuff. Is they'll use irony and human traits to have fun with this stuff. They don't fix any autocorrect. They don't fix any auto reply. They send as is.
Right.
And because they're all doing it, they kind of know, oh yeah, that nonsense. That's what Google said. Yeah.
Okay.
I like it. I think it's a good way. It's a good way of fending it off.
Yeah.
I mean, Mary Jo knows this from Skype conversations. I type quickly but inaccurately, and I will often come back and correct a word after the fact, or something. And sometimes I just let it sit because whatever. But it does, autocorrect maybe being one of the simplest forms of AI. Maybe spell checking is the simplest form, but whatever. It is kind of astonishing to me how often it doesn't work well.
And yet, when you're on a computer without spell check, don't you find that horrible?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We depend on it.
Spell and grammar check, really. I mean,
I've been using Grammarly, and that one now I'm dependent on it, and my grammar's excellent.
Yeah, me too. Yep.
I mean, I'm a very good grammarian, I think, but I still
A grammarian.
Yes, I'm a grammarian.
Is that what kind of a mammal is that? Is that like
it's a new Pokemon. It's for
like I have a sack, but I don't lay eggs.
The Sinnoh region. It's very exciting. For a long time I poo-pooed it. Lisa said, "No, you gotta use it." And it's
Grammarly's the best.
Grammarly's great.
Grammarly's so good. I'm annoyed when it's not in some places. Right.
Well, that's my point. Right.
Yeah. It should be an OS feature,
like spell check is.
Yeah.
So I think some of this stuff is hideously useful. In order to do any of these things, you're trading because Grammarly has to read your text as you type it. The keyboard has to read your text as you type it to autocorrect. It has to try to understand what you're saying. You're giving up some privacy, and there's a trade-off, and we're getting something out of it. And I think that makes up for it. As long as it's just advertising. If they start feeding that to an authoritarian government,
which they will in China,
it's a little different. Yeah,
sure.
Then it's a little different. And so so what Tim Cook called for is GDPR-like laws in the United States. And actually, I can't disagree with him on that. The things that he said, things like being able to control your data, delete your data on demand, to see what companies are keeping track of.
I just want to, again, I don't mean to pat myself on the back, but again, last week on this show, someone asked the question. I came back and said, Apple is the type of company who would look at the GDPR and not only meet the requirements, but exceed them.
Yep.
And then do that outside of Europe. That's how they are.
Yep.
And then 6 days later, or whatever, he went to Europe and he said we need the GDPR in the United States or whatever. I mean, it's interesting. I guess all I'm trying to say with Apple and privacy is simply that I have my issues with Apple, but the reason I think the privacy stuff is important is because we don't actually know everything they're doing, and we sometimes find out months or years later what they did. And Apple is the type of company that can kind of prevent that stuff from happening on their platform. I'm not saying we should all buy iPhones, but
I should point out, it may be self-serving, that all the big companies now, when they go to Washington and testify, say we want a federal law. And their real fear is 50 states with 50 different rules. Yeah. California's already enacted a GDPR, very similar law to GDPR in California has already been enacted. Right. It doesn't take effect.
I hope they called it the CDPR.
And I think every state will if the feds don't. And I think that's what Google, and it's self-serving because it's not that they want to be regulated. But
everything these companies do is self-serving. Yeah, they're not altruistic. Right. I mean,
but they see the writing on the wall and they know it's better to have this than something else.
Yeah, for sure.
And they're already doing GDPR. They have to. We have to. Everybody has to.
Right.
Except for a few.
Well, Mary Jo, I expect to hear from you the first time. See, I don't know how you use your phone, but if you're listening to like a streaming something, a podcast or whatever, and the Empire State Building looks particularly pretty tonight, so you take a photo and that audio stops playing back, I expect you to text me immediately.
I will.
That's something that probably will happen to you.
Mary Jo, have you lost any photos yet?
No, I have not lost any photos yet.
To my knowledge.
I've not lost any photos either, for whatever that's worth.
There's also a very picky group of people. Mostly they live on Reddit who will find flaw in anything, I mean, there's the light bleed problem, which I see this which every screen has. Every LCD has. Right.
That one I think is crazy. But by the way, so the couple of triggers that I had over the weekend and into Monday morning were I was at my sister's house. Her son was having a birthday party, and one of the big issues I have with Android is that over time the performance seems to slow down. And so I have this aggravating thing on the Pixel 2 XL where you kind of rotate the camera over the landscape because you're going to take a picture, and the screen kind of slowly goes, and then you hit the button for the camera icon, 1, 2, and it eventually pops up, and then whatever happened is kind of gone, and you're like, I just wanted to take a photo. Please, so brand new Pixel 3 XL. I'm over at my sister's house. Not a lightning quick requirement for the photo, but I had the exact same performance problem. This is a brand new camera. Now that does not happen every single time for sure. Sometimes it comes right up, but I've had this thing happen where this thing does not come right up.
And you're using the Pixel launcher, not a third-party launcher.
Yeah,
all right.
Yeah, and that was a troubling thing. But I read about the memory issues, and I have not, like Mary Jo, have not had any photo non-saving issues. That's been fine. But I'm listening to an audiobook, I think it was in this case. I want to take a picture of the sunrise because I'm walking outside at 7 o'clock in the morning like an idiot. and I go into the camera app and I take the picture and the audio stops. And I'm thinking,
and that's
okay,
still happening.
maybe.
By the way, I just got the updated camera app, and it's still happening. So,
yeah,
I think it's aggressive memory management. I really think that they'll tune that.
I do too. I think that's a software one.
Yeah,
but it doesn't happen when I'm like listening to Spotify and take a picture. Like
you're unusual.
So Spotify, that it does happen with Spotify to people. So I feel like it could happen.
You got the
I think
perfect
it will.
pixel.
I think they knew I was going to be the poster child for Android, so they said, let's give her the best Pixel 3X.
Rachel, let me ask you one crucial question about your Pixel 3 XL. Is it lappable?
It's lappable.
Let's see.
It's thieable. It's so lappable it's thieable.
Yeah.
You could put it on. It's ankleable.
Mm-hmm.
No, and you know what? I'm not saying this phone's going to be the perfect phone. I agree with Leo. There is no perfect phone. But so far in 4 days, I can't say I'm hating on this phone.
I'm quite fond of mine. I really am.
I want to be really clear about it. I'm not hating on the phone. I want this to be the phone.
Right.
Like this is
right.
This
you
is
want this to be your device.
Yeah, because
I would overlook things. Yeah. It'd be easier. I want to be on Project Fi. I don't want to leave.
Mm-hmm.
I love the camera. Like I said, I'm looking forward to the new stuff that's coming next month. Mm-hmm. And I'm not sure if I can trust it. And it's a weird place for me because I want to use this thing.
Mm-hmm.
I am biased towards the phone.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And like I don't know. Now I'm not so sure.
All right. So let's bring this home to Microsoft. What does this mean for First of all, they're not making phones, but what does this mean for Microsoft? And particularly the privacy conversation. Can they play a role in this? What should they do?
Yeah. Right. On the phone in particular?
Well, just in general. I mean.
Well, I think what they're telling people these days is if you use a smartphone, which everybody does anymore, we would like the PC to figure into your equation, so we're going to make it so that the phone and the PC can sync up more and work together more. That's what that whole Your Phone app is. This is why if you really care about the things your phone can do, like share the last 20 photos or SMS messages, you probably want to be on Android over iOS because more of those capabilities are going to work because the Android ecosystem is more open than the Apple one. So they're kind of coming at it as, we're not trying to be involved in, which is the most has the best privacy or this or that. They're just like, hey, whatever mobile device you want to use, we want to be there with our apps, our services. We want to be part of the equation. That's about it for them.
Yeah, I don't think that. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Can they be as much of a privacy advocate as Apple, and should they be?
I think that actually they kind of are. The problem is that their privacy efforts are kind of limited to the PC, right? And specifically Windows 10. I mean, Microsoft's answer to every problem is just upgrade to Windows 10. And I think the privacy is just like one part of what I would just call trust. And I think the one thing that Microsoft does have going for it is a trust with its most important customer base, in particular the enterprise. They are the trusted company that's going to bring them to the cloud, and they're going to be the trusted company that can manage your devices in the cloud, in your environment and so forth. It's a little stickier with individuals, not because Microsoft doesn't play a role from a privacy standpoint with their products, but just because once you get down to individuals out in the world with their devices, they're using all kinds of stuff. And Microsoft may or may not be part of that, depending on what you need. But they're not going to play as big a role in the consumer space as they do with businesses.
I think the only place you hear them already talking that whole trust, the trust issue and how they can be more trustworthy than anyone is around digital assistants. I've heard them say, we believe as we evolve Cortana, however that happens and whatever that looks like, we're going to be more of the trusted partner. Like if you're using this in a business setting, we think you're going to trust us to make sure your conversation is private and the parameters are set that we think about, are you in a context where it makes sense for you to be talking out loud about something? I don't know how they're going to do that, but they keep saying that's what's going to differentiate us from what Amazon's doing and what Google's doing. So I think the trust stuff will come up with digital assistants for them, mostly because they don't have a mobile phone. So this is the
Yeah.
one place where they do kind of interact directly with customers head on like that.
There's a trust element to cloud storage and the permissions and rights around that kind of stuff, obviously. Not that I
think,
feel
though,
like
people
Google probably has an issue
trust Microsoft in that regard. I think they have the default
I do
on
too.
that as trust.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Same.
You're an enterprise company. You're nothing without trust.
Yeah.
You better have it.
better
You
have
better
it.
have it.
But the issue for Microsoft is only that that trust is something they've built up in the business market only, really. And I don't mean to say that individuals don't trust Microsoft. I just think that individuals just kind of don't care.
Remember and I don't know how long-term this damage was, but the serious furor over privacy on Windows 10 and how you couldn't, Microsoft was phoning home, you couldn't stop it.
Largely
that went
European-based, wasn't it?
Yeah, it seems like it was largely. We need a name for a category of geeks who are really
Privacy geeks.
very sensitive to these issues. And I think it was those people, because it's gone away. I don't hear people talking about that anymore.
Because they've met the needs of European regulators, right? So those people have found a willing participant in antitrust regulators in Europe, and not just on the EU scale, but in individual countries. I think some of the stuff that we're talking about actually happened in Germany only, which is like particularly
very
rabid
privacy.
about this kind of thing.
Yeah.
For whatever
I think
reason.
we could call them
it's some cultural thing.
Gibsonians. Gibsonians.
That's good. I was thinking privacy seekers.
The Gibsonites.
The Gibsonites.
Gibsonites.
Oh, I like it.
I'm more of a Masonite.
It's funny. Actually, I don't think Steve is quite as reactionary on this as
really?
many of his fans are. In fact, it's funny because there's whenever one of our advertisers does anything that they consider, it's Security Now fans who we always.
Oh no, I get these emails all the time. How can you do business with this company that blah 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 whatever? It's like what are you talking about?
I think Microsoft actually does not have to worry so much, even though there was that one issue with Windows 10. They've got to worry a little bit more about software reliability. I got one about it was about Israel, and it was about how it was some company was doing something wrong, and it's like, well, how can you? I got to find this. It was crazy. Anyway, let me take a little time out, and then let's talk about Windows 1809, because it's not around. And then we had a note on Security Now yesterday that I was a little confused about. Another problem with 1809, which also apparently affects 19H1 or 1H, and it sounded like they'd fixed it in one, but maybe not the other. Anyway, we'll get to that in a second. Our show today brought to you by WordPress. Sometimes you don't, you want to be private. You don't want the world to know what you're up to, but I would submit sometimes it's a good idea to let the world know what you're up to as long as you're in control of it. I tell this to teenagers. I've actually given talks to families in high school. Teenagers need to have a website that's theirs. They put their best work on their 100 dash, or their great report, or their science project. You need to put your stuff up on the web, because if you don't, then your name on the web has no search results, which means somebody else can put their stuff in your name. Controls your image and your reputation. That's not good. And it's the kind of thing I think you need to start right now, no matter what age you are, even if you're 16, right now. And man, if you're a business and you don't have a web page, right now you need to make one, and WordPress.com is the place to do it. I know why you haven't. It's like, well, it's a lot of trouble, it's a lot of expense. I don't want to become a web geek. No, none of that's true. WordPress.com takes care of it all. It's hassle-free. They take care of the hosting, the security, the software updates. You focus on your site. You don't have to know CSS, HTML, JavaScript. You don't have to know any web technologies at all. Use their templates. They're great engineering. You just put the content there. They'll take care of the rest. And because they have so many great templates, your site will look like what you want it to look like. If you're a business, if you're an individual, you need a website. And with plans starting at $4 a month, WordPress.com is easily the best place to do it. It's where my blog lives, leolaporte.com. And, I use the WordPress app, which I love. And I just got something in my WordPress app that says something like, congratulations on your 10th anniversary with WordPress. Or maybe it was 12th. I think it was maybe 12. It's been a long time. I love WordPress.com. You will too. And because they have the best support in the world, 24/7 support, you'll never be alone, right? No question goes unanswered. They have a very easy chat interface. You can ask questions, get responses right away. And of course, for businesses, built-in search engine optimization means you're going to show up in search. You know, you don't show up in search if you don't have a website. Yeah, it's important to have a Facebook page and a Twitter feed and all that stuff, but you got to have a website. You got to have a place they link to and that links to it. When I got rid of all my social media, it was great because I started putting more stuff on my blog, and it's a great feeling because you own it. WordPress lets you upload videos, images, audio, and they store it. Not YouTube, not anybody else. It's not an embed. It's yours, and it's easy to get content into WordPress, but it's just as easy to get it out. It's secure. It's black. But I have backup through WordPress. Their Jetpack is amazing. Comment spam is a thing of the past on WordPress.com. They have a variety of different ways you can approve. I set it up so that if somebody comments, I have to approve it, and it's easy. The app does everything I want, including analytics and everything, but I have to approve it. Once I've approved somebody, then they can post without approval from then on. It's a great way, and there's different settings. You can say every comment has to be approved, no comment is approved, and their Kismet anti-spam engine catches every bit of spam. So your site looks great, is great. This is why 31% of all the websites in the world, 31% run on WordPress, almost a third now. Get 15% off any new plan purchase. All you have to do is go to wordpress.com/windows and create your site. Seriously, start now. wordpress.com/windows for 15%. Somebody said Leo now has anti-social media. No, I'm not saying you shouldn't put yourself out. You should. But do it under your terms on your site, wordpress.com/windows. We thank WordPress for their support and for helping me for the last, maybe it's 15 years. I have to go to the WordPress app and see, because I was like blown away. I was like, wow. Paul Thurrott, Mary Jo Foley, 1809. Where is 1809?
We would all love to know.
So just to recap, they put out 1809 for seekers. You could go get it about a month ago almost now. And
October 2nd.
And 1/100th of 1% of all installers had data deletion, which we're thinking now, I think the number now is 1,500 people lost data, something like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 1/100th of 1%.
Yeah, which if you multiply that 1,500 times that is... what was that? 15 million installs. That's about right, I would guess. However, there's other problems now. There's other loss, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. When it comes to data loss, it's like riding a bike. I mean,
I'm not sure what that means, but okay.
It's just once you've done it, you never forget how to do it.
Never forget how to do it. Oh Lord.
So yeah.
What's the latest?
This too is something that's not going to happen a lot, but it's kind of a rare occurrence. But if you have files on your desktop, let's say, and you have a compressed folder, which most people would call a zip file, and you use the built-in Windows tool to extract those files to that desktop, and some of the files in the zip file are the same as the files on the desktop, it's supposed to ask you if you want to overwrite them or keep both or whatever, and it doesn't. It just overwrites them. And so obviously, in many cases, that might not be what you want, and you've lost the old version of the file. Data loss 101.
Yep. Yep.
So are they going to fix it?
Yeah, I'm sure they are. And by the way, that might have something to do with why this final release has been delayed. I think it was a week ago yesterday that they released the fixed version of 1809 to the slow ring and to the release preview ring.
Yeah.
So, depending on how you measure things, Friday might have been a day for the final release. Yesterday, this Tuesday, was also a logical choice for that release. The fact that it hasn't happened possibly suggests that maybe they're going to try to fix this other data loss bug before it goes out, right? Via another quality update that would be, increment the minor part of the build number yet again. So we will see, but they've been really quiet on this.
They have.
So there's no way to know.
I know. I kind of wondered if part of the reason it didn't show up yesterday was because today is Microsoft earnings. And if you're somebody thinking about this, you're like, wait, what would be the worst thing we could pretty much do? Re-release a build and then more problems happen the day before we're going to do a call with financial analysts and talk about whatever they want to talk about.
I love, by the way, what you just said makes tons of sense. It's something that never would have occurred to me. And it is a beautiful example of how different our brains work. Because I sort of think
Friday was the same thing. I'm like, okay, if you're Microsoft, why would you ever roll this out again on a Friday? If there's
as you
any problems.
I have no doubt that you are correct. There's no doubt about it. It never would have entered my mind.
I just was thinking, man, you're on the Windows team. You roll out a re-release of something, and there's a problem, and it's Friday at 5, and now you're like,
well, hold on a second. Okay, the one thing I'll disagree with is it didn't come from the Windows team. It's more likely that someone a little higher in the org chart came down and said, "You idiots aren't going to do anything in the next week,
We're not doing this."
And they were like, "Actually, we were thinking about releasing." No, don't. Here's an idea. Wait 10 days.
I could see maybe tomorrow. The day after earnings could be okay.
Thursday is a weird day for that, though.
It would be
Friday
a weird day.
More typical. And do you think when this goes back out, are they going to do the seeker thing again, or does this become a?
Yeah, good question.
A
My
general
guess is
release
not
thing?
a seeker thing. My guess is it better be going on Windows Update at that point.
I don't think they should ever have a seeker thing.
Turn
I don't
off
either.
the seeker because it's
the seeker thing shouldn't happen.
As we've seen now, you can have unintended consequences. I just wanted to see if there was updates. I didn't want my files deleted.
Yes, and I think the better way to approach that is they already have a system for delivering builds to insiders or whatever. You could say, "Hey guys, we have an ISO over here if you want to install the final version, or put it somewhere that isn't where the general public's going to hit it."
Mm-hmm. But again, as we've said many times, what Microsoft is doing these days is they're using home users, especially, and the general public as the last ring of testers. They're trying to make people get it fast so that they can then push it out more broadly and then tell businesses it's time.
We live in this world of, it just feels like software quality has gone downhill really far. And it's not just Microsoft, right? Apple shipped the iPhone XS with this selfie camera thing that takes plastic mannequin photos of people. That's apparently a bug. The Google Pixel 3 XL has a memory management problem that people are taking photos they're not saving to the phone. It's kind of frustrating that these major releases have such quality control issues, data loss arguably is maybe the worst of the three, although data loss, taking a photo and not saving it is a form of data loss, I suppose. It feels like it's getting worse,
Well, software is more complicated.
Don't excuse these companies, Leo.
Well, what do you say? So I want to credit this guy, but I can't remember where I read this. Yeah. Somebody said the problem is, I'm sure you read this article, Microsoft's methodology. That
Peter Bright.
This Peter Bright, right? Ars Technica.
I don't mean to dump on Peter, but I have been harping on this for the past 2 years, and welcome to the party. But this is the thing. Remember, I talked about this. Microsoft gathers all this data, and it doesn't act on it correctly, right? The anniversary update, which is 2 years ago now, they had incident reports of all the problems that went out to the public and did nothing with it. This past release, same thing. Those 2 data loss incidents have been reported by insiders to Microsoft. So the insider program is its own problem. But this is an incredible example of not being able to harness the data you're collecting in a way that is going to work for you. It is literally a process problem. And I think the way I put it a week or two ago was just that, when you look at Microsoft, especially the Windows parts, the people I would kind of explicitly trust the most are the guys in charge of the kernel, the guys doing the core development of Windows. And these are the guys, unfortunately, I believe, who are responsible for this stuff ultimately. It's kind of scary that the adult supervision part of this process is the thing that's failing here.
He also, though, says it's a methodology that goes back to the days when Microsoft only updated Windows once every 3 years, right? And so they had a method that they pursued where they would gather information, decide what features. They would, in a sprint, a relatively short sprint compared to the length of time involved, do all the features without testing, and then put them into the test. So he says, in the olden days when product release cycles were 2 to 3 years, Microsoft arrived at a process divided into several phases. I know, Paul, you're getting upset. So let me just read this, and then you can. I can hear the steam rising. Design into several phases: design and planning, feature development, integration, stabilization. Perhaps 4 to 6 months of planning and design. 6 to 8 weeks of intensive coding. I know you don't, but let me just finish it. And then 4, because you can't shoot it down until I read it. Then 4 months of integration. Each feature would typically be developed in its own branch, so they all have to be consolidated and merged together. And then stabilization, which is to say testing and bug fixing. He says over the course. This is not how Windows was developed. Okay, so he's wrong on this.
You're pretending that Microsoft did the same thing for every version of Windows throughout all the years until Windows 10, and that's not true.
But what he is saying, and I think this is an old-fashioned waterfall method of programming, which is you decouple testing and development, so that you just write the whole thing and then you throw it out there and say, let's find the bugs. That's clearly what's happening now, and it's not working, right? It's not a modern way to do development.
This is not a problem that has a simple solution. You can't point at one thing and say this is where it went south. Back in the day, depending on the version of Windows you're talking about, things were completely different. The Windows 98 beta released a new beta every Friday, once a week. They released a new beta. In some ways, the release schedule was more dramatic than we're seeing. Not in some ways, it was. They released way more betas back then. Traditionally, with NT-type Windows versions, they would do these big milestones: Beta 1, Beta 2, Beta 3, RC1, RC2, like that kind of thing. The difference between then and today is that over the course of a 6-month development cycle with the public, we could get dozens of builds. Some of the builds have explosions of new features. Some of them have tiny amounts of new features. They're never adequately documented, and we don't always know what we're looking at. And a lot of insiders kind of, like I'll do this all the time. You just install each thing, you look at it, you don't see anything new, you kind of move on. I don't think people are going into things and testing individual things every single time. Microsoft has test suites that do this, obviously across computers or whatever, but I think the problem is that this thing has accelerated. The last time that Microsoft did something that you just described was with Longhorn, and it exploded. Right. It was too big. Right. And the thing they later came and did was something called Windows Vista, which was just the server version of Windows with a couple of features. It was big and bloated and had a couple of driver issues. They fixed it in SP1, and then they fixed it again in Windows 7, which was like SP2. And they've kind of just adapted this process with every version to meet the needs of the time. As recently as the last major version of Windows before Windows 10, Steven Sinofsky said 3 years is, when it comes to the development of Windows, 3 years still seems like the right time frame. The 3 years gives you the time, it gives Microsoft the time internally to develop this is going to be the feature set we hope to develop. Now we're going to put it in front of users. Some of it's going to work, some of it isn't. We'll pull out the stuff that doesn't, we'll put it in the next version. They used to do that over 3 years. Now they do that over 6 months. That's the difference. The difference is what I said 3 years ago. Windows as a service does not work. It does not work.
The other difference, though, which you and I both know about, is when they fired the testers in Windows, right? Which was in 2014. They used to have people, like a whole QA department inside Microsoft, who tested Windows. They developed, like you're saying, they developed the stuff, then they put it together, they give it to the testers and be like, okay, go test this. Now what they do is the people who develop the features are supposed to be testing their features. Like they're writing tests.
That does not work.
They're writing tests for their own features, right?
I mean, you should be writing tests. You should, I presume they're writing tests as they go, but you can't.
Yeah.
Bright says,
I don't know what
test
to think
the
of this.
software before you ship it, not after you ship it.
Well, yes, of course.
Obviously.
But no one seems to do that. Yeah. I mean, every platform, like Apple does this. There's an iOS 12.01, 12.02, 12.1. It's kind of built into the plan. Microsoft's traditional approach back in the day was service packs, right, which kind of fell apart over time. There were no service packs for Windows 8, right? They did different things. They had different release. They called them different things. They changed it. Changed again with Windows 10. Really what this is the speed. The thing that Mary Jo called for a year or so ago was slow it down in a way that makes sense. Major features once a year.
Yeah.
R2 the second half of the year. We're gonna refine it,
Slow it
There
down
used to be
and
this
improve
process.
the test process, though, right? I mean, it feels like you shouldn't let the insiders be the testers.
Well,
The one thing that's remained consistent, though. God, I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say the way the rings work is there's this canary ring, which are like thousands of people. Then there's like everybody at Microsoft starts testing it. Then it goes to the insiders, right? So there's these progressive rings that are progressively large. But I agree with Paul. I don't know that every insider who does testing or even anybody at Microsoft is out there like, oh, let me try this and see if this happens when I do this, right? I think they just run it and they're like, yeah, it runs on my system and it looks okay, looks good. I don't think people are like aggressively trying to break the build. That's just my feeling.
Yeah, yeah. Whether you're looking at Windows 98, which I described, or Longhorn and Vista or whatever, Windows 10, the thing that has remained consistent over the years is you can test it as much as you want. When you put that out to the public, things break. Because there's no way, and I think this maybe was the inspiration, part of the inspiration behind the Insider program. Obviously, you want to engage your most enthusiastic users. There's some benefit to that. And maybe they can help drive the way that Windows evolves, which actually has turned out to be a huge mistake. But also these people maybe would be more likely to actually do the testing. They wouldn't just install occasional builds. They're going to go and do this thing. But you know what? There's no way to emulate the vast, unbelievable different configurations out in the world. So you can test it on whatever. You can have internal testers. You can have external testers. Once that thing hits the internet, in this case, or goes out on a disk, people buy it in a new computer. Surprise. Things break. It still happens. It's happened basically with every version of Windows 10. You can't. It's like you can't avoid it. Except
no, it's not even just.
Case.
It's not even just the configurations, right? It's also the scenarios. Like the first data loss bug, that known folder thing. It's like, okay, you had to hit that in a very special way to actually have data loss happen. It wasn't just like this common scenario that many people had.
My guess is that's because the code was written by two different groups.
All right, but
and it
here's
worked fine when it was tested by the group that wrote the known folder, and it worked fine when the other group tested the deletion. But nobody. But when you're integrating these
tested the two things together.
Yes, and so they need better ways to do that. And you can't rely on insiders who are not professionals, even the
actually,
Microsoft
in this case, you
insiders. Well,
the issue is this stuff. No, but you can. That's the difference. This stuff. There's probably not an example of a major bug that went out in a shipping version of Windows 10 that wasn't reported by insiders. That's the problem. It's the process. They're not doing the right Microsoft.
No, that's what I'm saying. You can't let insiders be the last line of defense.
Well, yeah, they're not much of a line of defense for sure. But it's up to Microsoft to do the right thing with the data, to analyze the data correctly and determine. Just a week or two ago, John Cable wrote a post where he described how they're going to put a little thing in the feedback hub when you submit a bug, where you get to determine the severity of the bug. It's 2018. Wouldn't a data loss bug by nature be Sev1 or whatever the rating is? I mean, like, I just feel like they're not.
I think a public
have they never
beta,
developed software before?
Yeah, exactly. I think a public beta is fine, but they're not doing enough testing prior to the public beta.
Yeah. Look, Windows 2000, back when it was called NT 5.0, Beta 2 comes out. It was several months since Beta 1. You kind of do this, install this thing. It's all new. It's all different. There's like directory services happening and blah, 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 whatever. It's like this explosion of new. It's one of 3 major milestones you're ever going to see that have new features. You're paying attention to it. I think we start glossing over it now, There's almost
and you're on to the next thing, right? Like while you're finishing the testing of Redstone 5, you're already into the testing of 19H1, right?
It's like our attention is not divided enough. Here's the next version after this.
Yeah.
Like, and this is the Windows as a service thing is broken bit. Windows as a service, if you're and I mean it in a really traditional sense, if you're servicing an operating system, by which I mean fixing bugs, right, is a wonderful idea. And maybe that's something Microsoft can do effectively, although there are examples, obviously, of fixes going wrong. Microsoft adding new features at this rate to a legacy platform like Windows is insanity. And it's just unnecessary. And I feel like this is obvious.
Well, they may decide
because
this, right? I mean,
we have the history of it. Well,
this is why
we
you
talk a
don't let
lot about who
marketing-
Microsoft's most important market is, the enterprise. Those guys have pushed back, and Microsoft has stretched out that support for each version of Windows. You know, they're trying not to go to the old schedule, 3 years, right? But I bet they get there, and especially now that Terry Myerson is gone, and I bet this changes again. I think.
Am I being naive and even academic? But it strikes me that this must be a problem that has been solved.
Yes.
In terms of development, that there are tools, there are methods that make it more reliable.
Yes, because it's a scale thing, right? So the reason Longhorn failed is that the way they developed Windows before that, it was a smaller thing. There were X number of groups contributing their little code bits. They would throw it all together, make a build. If it built, they would, test it internally first and then maybe ship it out to people. Longhorn, they couldn't get it to work because by that time the groups had grown from, I don't know the numbers, I'll make something up, from dozens to hundreds. That process did not scale. It's a modern era. They have incredible tools for this stuff now. They have the amount of data that they get back on all of these builds must be incredible. I just feel like they're not doing the right thing with it.
Here's one more thing Peter says you can yell at. The real strength of the Insider program is the diversity, and I completely agree with it, by the way, I should say, is the diversity in hardware and software that it can expose Windows to, shaking out compatibility bugs and driver issues and so on. Insiders should not, however, be the primary source for the more bread and butter, does this feature actually work testing. Often, however, it feels as if that's how Microsoft is using the program. Insiders can't be expected to be real Q&A testers. They're there to test compatibility.
I'm not 100% sure that they are, but I agree with that. I mean, yes. But like I said, Microsoft has these test suites. I'm sure a lot of it's virtual now, which is probably a huge mistake, but whatever. You have some level of testing that can occur across configuration types. Once you introduce it to the millions of people that have, that are insiders that are installing these things on their computers, you have a whole nother world. But again, it's almost exponential when it goes out into the world yet again. And the thing that I think what he's saying there is what's valuable is the telemetry data that those machines provide back to Microsoft about what's working and what's not working. Not some guy saying, I don't like the fact that the Photos app doesn't have a dark theme, which is useless. Right. And that's true, but this also assumes that Microsoft's doing the right thing with the data that's collecting. And I think we have seen that they are not.
Right. Well, it does need to be fixed. And it isn't exclusive to Microsoft, as we pointed out. The Pixel's got these problems. Apple had a problem with the Apple Watch going into a boot loop when Australia went to standard time. Apparently, they haven't figured out how to test standard time to, summertime to standard time. And this happens every time. The fix at the time was, it'll be better tomorrow.
It will be better tomorrow.
It will be better.
That's always
tomorrow.
true, isn't it? Or possibly tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
Why don't you just give it till tomorrow? If you don't like the weather today,
see what happens.
Problem with tomorrow is always a day away.
Anyway, I actually, Peter's point is all valid. I mean, I guess my only complaint is that there have been others complaining about this for years, and the Insider program have I compared it to McDonald's yet on the podcast? Like, it wasn't meant to hurt people, but ultimately over time, what we realize is that
it's killing us.
Yes. Yeah. Like, it's just not right. Like, it was designed to be more efficient and whatever. But when you kind of look back on it, you're like, we didn't really see the side effect of this thing.
Yeah.
It's not malicious, right? It just ended up not being the right thing. That's all. And well, because you're giving a voice to a very small minority of people who are maybe a little overly enthusiastic about all things Microsoft. And what you're not giving a voice to is the 99% of the other people who really don't care about any of this crap you're putting in Windows and kind of wish it wasn't there. And it's not really benefiting them in the slightest, but all you've done is add to the bundle of nonsense that is Windows these days. And I just got an email from Microsoft from the Insider program aimed at businesses, and it's sort of a survey thing. We're looking to understand what it is you want to try to get out of this. I suspect that Microsoft is desperate to get more engagement from the business side of the Insider program, and that there's in fact very little, because, well, I mean, can you imagine some kid walks up to his boss at some enterprise and says, "Hey, I want to get some machines on the Insider program." Yeah, that's fantastic.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, we're going to be running Windows 7 for the next 3 years. Get out of here.
They've run multiple sessions at things like Ignite where they're trying to get people to do just that.
Yeah.
Like, here's how to introduce rings into your own company. I would like to know how successful or not that's been too.
We don't hear a lot about this. My stock answer to that kind of question is, well, has Microsoft ever talked about it?
Really
and
big.
The answer is no.
Really big companies have people dedicated to testing the next version of Windows proactively. It's a small group. It's
really big companies also have things that they care about a lot more than what version of Windows they're running. That's not their business.
Well, but they know they're going to move at some point, so they're going to
right. No, the IT department has certain people who are testing this stuff before they're like, okay, open the floodgates, right? They've got to be doing that.
Right.
They've got to have pilots, right?
Right. But it's not in the numbers that Microsoft probably needs.
They don't want new features. They want things not to break.
Right.
Here's an idea. Could you ship the thing you shipped before but make it less buggy? That's what we want.
They want security features. That's one thing they do want, for sure.
Right.
Okay. Not a 3D map maker.
Maybe not.
Whatever.
Maybe not.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I want to be able to look at my data on a cone in real time. And yeah, sure you do. I don't know. I'm not sleeping enough today, obviously. I don't know what's going on.
Hey, here's some good news. Let's do good news.
Okay.
There is a new Spectre fix that is much more performant, maybe only 1 or 2% slowdown. And that's going to be coming out soon.
That's a good feature, right?
Yeah, that's a good thing.
And this is something I sort of always wondered about, whether the platform makers, Microsoft, Google, whoever, or Intel, could kind of figure out at some point this kind of processor speculation attack. Is there some way in software to make this less of an issue from a performance standpoint when we fix it? And it always seemed like this is a software problem. And so someone from Microsoft tweeted like, yeah, actually we threw that into the 19H1 builds. And the performance hit went down, what was it, 20 or 14 to 20% down to like 2%.
Yeah.
Ish, right? And now we get into an area where, awesome. Like that's completely acceptable.
Right.
I think, they did the quick fix.
So we think that's going to be in 19H1. We think.
Good. Good. You know who you could thank for that? Ryan Shrout.
Oh my God. Did you see he's going to Intel?
I know.
He is Ryan at Blog Today. He's
Ryan?
leaving. Ryan, I mean.
I love you.
Yeah.
You're a sellout.
No, listen to the job.
It's awesome.
First of all, Ryan will be active immediately, leaving his duties as the host of This Week in Computer Hardware.
Oh, boy.
Well, he has to. Intel won't let him do it, and we won't let him do it. So I think he knew this. But I think we have some good replacement. We'll talk about that. But he blogged on PC Per. Today marks the beginning of a second journey, one that I didn't know would ever come. I've accepted a role at Intel, get this, as the company's chief performance strategist.
Wow.
I
hope he means performance in the broadest possible sense, right? Because Intel has excellent performance, traditional performance, but one of the areas that's kind of been lagging behind is more what I would call efficiency, right? And so
he says, in this capacity, I'll help influence and drive performance leadership across Intel's product portfolio. It's really exciting. We're very proud of you, Ryan.
No, he's awesome.
We're very happy for you.
Amazing.
Yep.
That benefits all of us, frankly.
Absolutely.
Him doing
To
this.
have somebody like him on the inside is great.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. So we'll have some announcements about This Week in Computer Hardware, but I wanted everybody to know how happy we are for Ryan Shroud. He tweeted it, so it's now public.
Yeah.
Yep. And then, there's Surface. Paul got his Surface laptop too. Are you?
Yeah, just 2 weeks too late to make a difference. So neat. No, it's awesome. The truth is, I love Surface laptop, which is convenient since this machine is identical. But from a port and form factor perspective, it hasn't changed. But it does come in black now, which looks awesome. And it has 8th generation core processors, which is, a no-brainer. So that's great. Yeah, it's a beautiful machine. There's something about this computer. I can't quite explain it.
You got the matte black, right? You got the pretty one. Good.
It's nice.
And there's a new Spectre from HP, an EliteBook, right? Are you going to get those?
Yeah, I think I am. So
I want to get the folio. I want to get the leather one.
I know.
We want to see the leather one too.
Maybe I'll buy that one. You got
they with the previous generation Spectres, they kind of went to this angular design style, which is, depending on how you feel about things, is either awesome or a little off or whatever. And I wasn't too sure of it, but they kind of went extreme with it on this gen. They've done it even more to the point where if you think about like a laptop keyboard deck, it's it's a rectangle, right? So what they did was they angled the corners in the back and they put USB port, not that one, but if you go down, they put USB-C ports there. Right, so it's kind of a neat way to have.
I like that. Yeah,
it's cool.
Yeah,
I like it too.
Because it doesn't come out at you if you're using a mouse or something next to it, or just just your hand sitting there. I mean, it actually, when you see it, like, that kind of makes sense. You can't put it on the back because of the way the hinges and the venting works, and it's still user accessible, and it kind of gets stuff out of the way. It's a nice idea.
The thing that grabbed my eye is 22 and a half hours of battery life.
Yes, right.
I would like to see the real number.
Is that true?
But yeah.
Can that be true?
No.
No, it can't be true. But one of the things, but you know what could be true is 15 hours, right? So if this is the thing that's interesting, right? So when you think about Snapdragon, whatever, running Windows and 20 plus hours of battery life, that's amazing. But the rest of the equation kind of falls apart. If you could have a device that was like a true quad core, 8th gen core, whatever processor, and 15-ish hours of battery life, that's the win right there. Right?
I'd be
It'd
thrilled.
be amazing.
Yeah, that's the win.
Does this have LTE?
And I bet it
LTE?
does.
Oh, there is optional LTE.
Yeah.
Yep. These are nice.
I know. It seems like the perfect device.
It does. But it's not in leather.
It's not in leather. That's true.
But that will make it lighter, not being in leather.
That's true. Leather,
It's heavy.
Yep.
But you also can't throw it like a football.
So I'll be very, very interested. This is the 13-inch version that gets that great battery life.
Yeah. There's a 15-inch version.
Is this no, this was at the event. This looks like
No, this was at the event. I don't have these in-house yet. I'm hoping to review at least one of the Spectres and then also the EliteBook.
Nice. Well, that's one new thing. And then Samsung is apparently... They're having their Samsung developer event in San Francisco soon. I wonder if they'll announce this foldable laptop display there. That would be interesting.
Yeah. The only reason I thought this was interesting is because of whatever succeeds Andromeda. Because what I've gotten tips on is it may not look like a phone form factor, whatever they come out with on the Surface team, but it might be more of a PC design that's foldable. So I'm like, I wonder if this is connected to that and if they may be working on either on their own version of the same technology or using some of this technology.
And if it's in leather, now
if it's
how
in
much
leather,
would you
it's
pay?
the best of all worlds.
Is leather the new Alcantara?
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
Is that what's happening?
Yeah, for
Pretty
sure.
much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You guys are going to be firing up your notepads in just
We are.
a little bit. What about 1 o'clock, you think?
Yep.
Should we get out of here so that you can do the quarterly earnings?
Yeah, we should pretty
All right.
soon. We could do a back of the book still.
Let's do the back of the book. I'm going to do an ad. Prepare yourselves.
Okay.
Gird your loins. The back of the book is coming up in just a second. Our show today brought to you by Capterra. We like Capterra because I get a lot of calls on the radio show from people, hi, I'm a vet. Hi, I'm a plumber. Hi, I'm a dentist's office. We need software to run the business. And I don't know what the best choice is. I know names of, people talk about what's the best accounting software, what's the best web design software. But Capterra is the place to go to get actual answers. Capterra, CAPTERRA.com is a free website. 600 categories of business software, thousands of programs, each with real reviews by real users. So you can see exactly the features. You can make comparison charts. It is a great site to know about. Don't Google it. Don't call Leo. Capterra it. CAPTERRA.com/Windows. By the way, when you go there, right now they're offering a free ebook, the big book of free software. So there's a lot of free choices out there. Capterra has always been free, but now there's a free book of software, over 300 different tools, free, that you'll help you find a completely free tool to test today. It's absolutely free, won't cost you a penny, whether it's a project management tool, e-commerce software, an email marketing solution. This is great. Get it, download it right now. Capterra's big book of free software at capterra.com/Windows. CAPTERRA, Capterra.com/Windows. Use their search engine too, because it's fantastic. Find the right business software. And in this case, free. I mean, it's free to use Capterra. It always has been. But the big book of free software is free too. Capterra.com/Windows. Time for the back of the book. Let's kick things off.
Yeah, we didn't do a lot of Xbox stuff, but that's okay because all my back of the book stuff is Xbox stuff.
It's shocking.
Thank goodness.
Almost all of it is. I know. You're like, finally.
Finally.
I think you were going to stop ranting about other nonsense and talk about Xbox. Tip of the week is that Xbox is having what they're calling a Shocktober, sale. There are some really good horror games here for almost nothing. Like Friday the 13th is $6. Alien Isolation, the collection, which is an amazing game, is $12. Prey is $15. So some of these games are up to 70% off. I discovered this just by going to the store on the Xbox itself. I'm sure you can find it on Xbox.com as well. And then related to this, Microsoft just added 4 horror titles to Xbox Game Pass. Usually, they do new games at the beginning of the month. This is kind of an additional one. So Dead Island, Riptide, Definitive Edition, Outlast Observer, and Hello Neighbor.
Hello Neighbor.
It is said like that, actually. That's correct. And then the app pick is it's something I just spent time with. This is amazing. Half-Life 2 through the Orange Box, Portal, which is also in the Orange Box. Left 4 Dead 1 and 2 and Portal are all available now through Xbox 360 backward compatibility on Xbox One. And they've been enhanced automatically. The developer didn't do anything for Xbox One X. And it is amazing. And like Half-Life 2 in particular, I actually bought it. I must have owned this thing on disc because I played this game at least a dozen times.
I bought the Orange Box when it came out, you bet. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
This has TF2 on it as well, which is nice.
Yep. I just started Half-Life 2 for the upteenth time, and I got to tell you, this game has got to be...
It's scary.
13, 14 years old. It is amazing how good this game is today.
Those face suckers jump out of there. Boy, move.
The whole introduction to the game where you kind of the train arrives, you go through the station, you get beat up a little bit, you run away from the cops on the top of the building. It puts you in the world that this thing exists in. It's astonishing. It is such a great game.
Yes.
And it looks great on Xbox One X. So it's just awesome.
And Portal.
So definitely check that.
If you haven't played Portal.
I know. Portal's genius.
What a great kids game. Yeah.
And then also just as an aside, this has nothing to do with Xbox, but Firefox 63 is out as of, I don't know, it's last night or today, but the big thing they're starting to do is that kind of Apple-like, privacy thing. They're going to start blocking trackers through the browser. It's off by default. You can enable it. You can disable this functionality on a site-by-site basis, and it's something they're going to enhance over time. But Firefox 63 is the first version to support that. It also supports dark mode, by the way, in Windows 10.
Lovely.
So that might be another reason to get that.
Lovely. And now Mary Jo Foley with her Enterprise pick of the week.
Right. So I have two picks for enterprise this week. The first one is about the Microsoft Tech Community site, which is where Microsoft is putting more and more of their blog content. They used to put all their blogs on MSDN blogs and TechNet blogs, but gradually they're starting to move that content off, or not, maybe not all of it, but a lot of it off to the Microsoft Tech Community site. So when this started happening, I was a little concerned because there didn't seem to be any RSS feeds on the new site. And if you know how many blog posts Microsoft does in a day, you can't really follow this without an RSS feed. So luckily, this week I learned that there are RSS feeds for the Microsoft Tech Community site. There's an RSS feed on each individual blog under the down arrow on the far right. But there's also a master feed, and I'm not going to attempt to give you the URL. I'm going to write a blog post with the URL in it because it's so long and convoluted. But thank you to R. Podrick. I don't know how he found this URL. Microsoft didn't even know it existed, as far as I can tell, because no one I know there even knew it existed. But if you are like me and you use an RSS reader to try to keep track of your feeds, you're going to be very happy about this.
Nice.
The other good news about this is Richard Hay, when observed, he did a post this week on IT Pro where he actually put up an OPML file with all the RSS feeds combined together, which is awesome for this site.
Very nice.
So I'll put all this together in a blog. I think we're all going to need it as Microsoft moves more content to the Microsoft Tech Community site. So that's pick one.
Very nice.
Pick two is this week, Microsoft started rolling out into general availability the Office 2019 servers. So that's Exchange Server 2019, SharePoint Server 2019, Skype for Business 2019, and Project Server 2019. These are the versions of these products for people who don't subscribe to Office 365. People who want the on-prem versions, they don't want to do the subscription thing for whatever reason. The one catch is you can't use Exchange Server 2019 yet because you need Windows Server 2019, which Microsoft also pulled when they pulled the October update, and they haven't reinstated it yet. So you're kind of stuck on that one. But hopefully soon, TM, it will be coming back.
And now, minutes away from Microsoft's quarterly earnings, we give you beer.
We're all going to need this.
We'll all need this.
Yep, my pick this week is from Springdale, which is the experimental beer arm of Jack's Abbey in Framingham.
Oh, we like Jack's Abbey.
Yeah, Jack's Abbey's great.
Yeah.
And Springdale makes some very cool beers. This one is called Brigadeiro. Brigadeiro, I found out, is a Brazilian dessert that's got chocolate in it, or based in some kind of a chocolatey base. This Brigadeiro is a sweet stout. So it's a stout that's sweetened actually with sugar, and it uses Brazilian coffee and lactose. So if you drink it, it tastes like a delicious sweet cup of coffee. That's what it actually tastes like.
That gets you drunk.
Yeah, 7.5%. So you probably can't drink too many of these, but it really is tasty. And I could see drinking this for breakfast, just saying.
Yum.
Also, I'd like to personally thank you for not doing a pumpkin beer.
Pumpkin spice
there
next
aren't very
week.
many good ones, really.
That's why.
Yeah.
Wow.
Not too many good ones.
Brigadeiro. So, just briefly before we go, what should we be looking for in the quarterly results? Anything in particular? What numbers?
You're going to hear a lot
for?
about commercial cloud.
Yeah.
You know, that number Microsoft has created to report Office 365, Azure, Dynamics 365, and now some of LinkedIn's online assets are in there too. So they're going to give you some number that's just kind of a made-up number that will show to investors that they're progressing in their mission to try to make more of their revenues cloud-based. So they'll give you some big new number on that.
Cool.
Big stuff from commercial cloud.
All right.
Woo! We
Also,
can already
we
write
should
that
leave,
headline.
before we discuss our future travel plans. What are they, Mary Jo?
What? You're leaving
Future
again?
travel plans.
We don't have any. That's the point.
Okay.
We're staying home.
Right now, no travel plans. That's correct.
Home for the holidays.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Mary Jo Foley's home is at allaboutmicrosoft.com. That's her ZDNet blog. Paul Thurrott's is thurrott.com, THURROTT.com. His books are at leanpub.com. including the field guide to Windows 10. Newly updated for 1809. Or not.
Yes.
Yeah, he'll release it when they do.
There it is. It is being updated. Yeah, no, it's in the process.
You have plenty of time.
Yeah, looks like it.
I know. I thought I was behind, but actually, as it turns out,
way ahead. And together they join us every Wednesday, 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern, 1800 UTC for Windows Weekly. And you can catch up on all of that. You can watch it live if you wish at twit.tv/live. That's our live feed, audio and video available there. If you do that, join us in the chat room at irc.twit.tv. Those are the people who are watching the show live and talking about it as we do it. You can also get on-demand versions at our website, twit.tv/ww, or go to twit.tv/subscribe or your favorite podcast application and subscribe so you get it late Wednesday. The minute it's done, we'll push it out and you'll get it immediately on your phone or your tablet or your computer. We thank you so much for listening to Windows Weekly, and we'll see y'all next week. It'll be Halloween, Paul. So expect a costume.
are we actually doing it on Halloween night?
Halloween afternoon, yeah.
Day,
Oh,
or
man.
whatever.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good stuff.
So
That is.
just get ready. Leo might be
I'll
wearing
get a
a something.
Uh-oh.
I'll get something. I'll get like a pumpkin head, or I already have a pumpkin head. I'll get some kind of a something.
I have this, but I don't think I should wear it. Let me just.
Oh, no. I think I know what this is.
Oh, is this the thing we saw on? Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Thinking.
Oh,
This
good
is
Lord.
just wrong.
that is in face, right? That's what I'm looking at.
Yeah.
Yeah, I won't be wearing that.
Yeah, I
That's
can see
good.
why you might not. How come no one told me my butt was so big?
They'll make
Yep,
anything
Microsoft
in
earnings
China.
are out. Microsoft Cloud powers record
gotta go.
first quarter revenues.
All right.
Bye-bye.
You nailed it. We'll see you guys next time on
Yep.
Windows Weekly.
All right.
Bye-bye.